Hi, I'm Mary. So you have a problem because you have opened a lovely bottle of wine and you're not going to drink it all in one sitting perhaps, and you want to be able to enjoy it over a few days. This often happens when one person in the house wants to drink one type of wine and somebody else wants to drink another one. And that's great. You should drink the wine that you like. Problem is that you notice perhaps that when you leave them out on the bench, they start tasting not as good as they did when you first opened them. The reason for that is that the enemy of wine is air. Now, you'll be thinking, well, why on earth do we decant or use aerators? Good question. Air can soften a wine, particularly a bigger, bolder red style. And so it can be great to put a little bit of air over wine just before you sort of start to drink it. But if you leave it with a lot of air exposure, the air is rotting the wine. So it is the enemy. And what it's going to do is, and you've probably seen this on your kitchen bench, firstly, the fruit disappears, then it gets a little bit dull, then a little bit bitter, and ultimately you've got acid. You've got vinegar, acetic acid. So what are you going to do about this? Well, there are some great things that you can do at home, and some of them are really basic and don't require expensive gadgets or anything like that. The first thing is to literally limit the amount of air in the vessel. So if we take this bottle here, you can see we've drunk nearly 3/4 of the bottle and there's a huge amount of air left in here. Okay, that's deteriorating this wine quite rapidly. So, very easy is if I just decant this into a much smaller bottle or even a jar, because it doesn't matter what the vessel is, I'm going to get rid of all of that air and I'm going to keep that wine fresher for longer. So it's a really good, easy hack is to have on hand at home some really clean glass bottles. You can even use a jar, but don't use one that's just kind of had the kimchi washed out of it, because you'll find that that's the taste of the wine that you'll get. But just having some vessels at home that you can use, that's your first thing. Most practical and actually probably one of the most effective. Number 2 is to put it in the fridge. And you might be thinking, oh, that's fine. I do that with white anyway. But I'm talking about red wine as well. You can put your red wine in the fridge, your normal fridge. So all you have to do is just make sure that you pull it out early enough before drinking that you get it to room temperature. So just pour yourself off a glass if you plan to have a glass a night over a week, or pull out the bottle if you're going to finish the rest of the bottle beforehand. But putting the wine in the fridge, great way to keep it. And in conjunction with the first tip of putting it in a smaller vessel, you're onto a winner. If you want to get a little bit more into the gadget style of things, there's plenty for you to spend your money on. So the first one is vacuum seals. Literally, they just come with these rubber bungs, and you pop that on after each time you have taken the seal off, and then you just vacuum out the air like this. It's pretty easy. And there you've got a nice plug, and it's taken the air out. They're pretty effective. And you can hear the gas release there where I've just taken it out. There's little things like this called a repour, which we sometimes use in our experience packs that we send out to people's homes, when particularly if we've got a few bottles we want you to open all at the same time. And they do a good job as well, but you have to buy them individually each time. Here's another one, wine gas. It's argon gas, and you just give it a spray and then put your cap back on. And so what you've done there is you've put gas back in there and no air in there. So that can be pretty good as well. There's wine fridges. That's a bit more high gradient up the totem pole and comes at some expense, but they're very good. And if you live in a really warm climate or a very variable climate, I'd suggest them, because you really get to keep your special expensive bottles looked after well, plus drink at the right temperature. We've got fancy Inomatics in the cellar door. They can also be good. And there is now a product on the market called a Coravin, which actually you don't even have to open the closure at all. It just puts a needle through the top of the bottle, and they're very effective also. So from the very basic of just doing it yourself at home through to the more expensive, you've got plenty of ways to be enjoying a wine well over a week. And cheers to that.